so recently I saw this viral clip about names and why choosing an Anglo-sounding, an anglophone name, an English name, enable these individuals to do well in life and be more successful. And it really made me stop to think, because obviously, as you know, I don't have an anglophone name at all. My name is Yoruba, and it is a name that has meaning and has depth to it for me. And it made me think, not because it made me think, oh, should I actually have an English sounding name or an English name, but it just made me think how fundamentally sad the whole conversation piece is. Like, the whole idea that basically parents give their children names to ensure maximum assimilation, right, to the community or society, I should say, that they find themselves in. Now, don't get me wrong, I get it. You know, for some people it's obviously a survival tactic, I get it. But in my experience and the experience of many others, so I'll speak from my experience, right? And there's a few things to kind of factor in. I get it. Mispronunciation is one thing that gets people upset and annoyed, and it's grating. And there's this whole idea that people are able to pronounce certain names and not other names, or so for instance, there's this thing that people are able to pronounce the names of classical musicians or authors from certain parts of Europe, which actually fundamentally I don't necessarily think is true. I don't think a lot of us are actually pronouncing so let me see if I can even see, like, I can't even get it out. Tchaikovsky? No, I'm trying to get it out. I don't actually think a lot of us are pronouncing some of these names correctly anyway. If we're thinking about it phonetically and beyond, let's remove the anglophone, because what my thing is, the thing that gets me is so centered around anglophone pronunciation, right? A lot of these conversations that I find tend to focus on anglophone pronunciation. And if we were really being 100% honest with ourselves and each other, a lot of us are not pronouncing words, names correctly, even if we break it out to if we're going to keep it to Europe, but I actually don't think we should. I even think we should go to, you know, on a global scale, whether it's African nations, Asian nations, you know, South American nations. A lot of us are not pronouncing each other's names as they are supposed to be pronounced, pertaining to the tones, you know, tonal, the way it's supposed to be pronounced from the essence of the language itself. So if we kind of try and say, oh, well, you know, they can pronounce these European names correctly, so they should be able to pronounce this African name correctly, I'm a little bit like, well, no, I don't even know if we're even pronouncing those European names correctly. It's just that we've normalized the way we pronounce it, again making anglophone linguistics the main character of every conversation. And, you know, I've grown up, people mispronounce my name, right? And to be honest, yeah, okay, it can be annoying, but at the other side of this coin, I'm like, that doesn't mean I'm not going to fully embrace and be proud of my heritage, my culture, and my name, because of this expectation that somebody who was not raised in my community or raised to speak the language from my community should be able to, you know, say it. Look, I'm not going to hold people to that. I will show them and teach them phonetically based on their phonetic understanding how to pronounce my name. But there's always going to be a tonal, you know, there's words, there's ways in which because of the way I was raised in East London, it's tonally, I don't always get certain pronunciation right, even within my own language, because I was not necessarily given that full tonal capacity right, to pronounce certain words correctly. So if it boils down to names, and let's go back to that primary point of, you know, should we be giving our children English sounding names or anglophone names in order for them to be successful and to thrive in the UK or in the West, in anglophone nations, again, because anglophone always has to be the main character in every bloody conversation. But anyway, I would fundamentally say no. I feel like at the end of the day, if you're saying, okay, an English sounding name on a resume or a CV is going to get you through the door, so you're going to get an interview, for instance, fine, okay, that's part one. But then if you get to it, because what is the crux of this? What is the real issue? It is not just the name, it's about identity, right? And if we're going to break it down further, it's about race to some degree, okay? Or for some people, to every degree. If I was to have an English sounding name based on that, and then I walk through the door, let's be honest, and there's studies, and you know me, I love a receipt, so I'll find some of those studies and the research. Let's be honest, the moment they see me, their biases are still going to come up. So it wouldn't necessarily matter me having an English sounding name. It's not going to break down the biases and the prejudices, if I can even pronounce that word. See, I can't even pronounce English words. the discrimination, the discriminatory perceptions that they have of me or of people who look like me. So I don't know, I just felt like I wanted to talk about, you know, this idea of having an English sounding name, and, you know, why, you know, people give their kids English sounding names, or what it, you know, what it means, why it matters. And for me, it's honestly, it's kind of sad, to be honest. The whole conversation piece is kind of sad. And again, I don't really, like, even in the country that I'm from originally, you know, in Nigeria, in the African continent, again, if we just break it down, there are so many ethnic groups with so many specific languages, ways of speaking, that we are not even pronouncing each other's names or words correctly, even within our own communities. But okay, if I was going to break it down even further, if I was to remove the anglophone, if I was speaking about, you know, francophone, or if I was speaking about an Asian language, how they pronounce certain words, if they read a certain word or a certain name, the way they read it phonetically, the way they read things phonetically is going to be slightly different to the way I read things, or people from my background read things. And you have to teach people how to say, you know, your name, teach them, and be patient and recognize that if they've grown up with a particular way of using their tongue and their tones, and there's a particular way in which, you know, they say their vowels. Some of them, you know, some of us don't, our alphabets are different, for goodness sake. Like, some of us don't have the same alphabets, for goodness sake. So for me, it's like, I'm not going to now center Anglophone linguistics. But more than that, it's not, it goes beyond linguistics. It goes back down to the who and the why we're doing what we're doing. Who are we prioritizing? And whose comfort are we prioritizing by doing this? And by even having these kinds of conversations in where we're saying, you know, having an English sounding name actually gives me an advantage in some way. And we know, like, yeah, advantage in, okay, so you get through the door, or on the phone. If you have, again, this is all very much dependent on if you have the right accent. So you might have an English sounding name, but then you pick up the phone maybe, and if you don't have the right way of speaking, well, what's the point? And like I said earlier, if you walk, you get, the English sounding name gets you through the door, but if you get through the door and they've already got their biases, or they've already got their perceptions of you, or they've already got their way of thinking, what are you going to do? It makes no, like, difference. So okay, I get it. There's certain generations who do it, and even in my generation who are still doing it, giving their kids English sounding names, Anglophone names, because they believe that it will give them some kind of advantage. I disagree. I mean, fundamentally, we've got more work to do. I don't think that having an English sounding name is necessarily the way around it, or the way about to go about. You know, we could talk for hours about the fact that there's a lot of work that is not even ours to do. So we keep doing this thing, and I say by we, our communities who are marginalized or minoritized keep doing this thing to make the masses more comfortable. And actually, is it working? I'd like you know, answers on a postcard, please, or answers in the comments below, please. So please share your thoughts. What do you think? Does it even make sense? Have I just been yapping for the sake of yapping? Share your thoughts and let me know what you think. I'd really love to hear your views on this, because it just really made me pause and think, like, I don't know why we're still having this kind of conversation in this day and age, but we are, clearly, and people are very passionate about it, clearly. So I'd really be interested to know what your thoughts are. So feel free to share in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share. Yeah, thank you for watching. Take care.